So we are a nice group here, and not many of us, so I hope we all can use this time to get each other, to know each other better. Everybody has a different background, everybody has a different meditation experience. And we will also have time for individual interviews. So I hope we can use this time maximum for our benefit. Now, in this course, I will be introducing one of the most important treatises in Chinese Buddhist literature concerning the Buddha nature or Tathagata Garbha, which, as you may know, is the base also for most of the schools of Chinese Buddhism, in which I had also the privilege to be trained. My background is mostly in Theravada, but because I decided to live in Europe and I can't keep all these vows of Theravada, so it is for me much more convenient to be part of the Chinese Sangha. And I am building a small meditation center in my country, in the Czech Republic, and hope to also, my emphasis is, I always teach that in all my activities, that ultimately Buddhism is one. We are using different methods, but we are using different methods. We have to use it with understanding that Buddha was never a sectarian, but we are sectarian because of our shallow understanding. In this tradition that we are going to learn, finally only the Buddha himself has a complete understanding of himself and of the world. In order to understand the world, we have to understand ourselves. In order to understand ourselves, we have to understand the world. So these two, they have to be complementary in order that we can attain the ultimate aim of Buddhism, which is benefiting oneself and others equally. This is actually the essence of all Buddhist traditions without any differentiation. What the Buddha has always taught is to learn to be able to benefit oneself and others equally. This is what we strive for. This emphasis is particularly strong in the what we call the Mahayana tradition. You start to learn the Mahayana by taking the vows, actually, that you don't liberate yourself only, but liberate all beings, that you don't get rid of your own defilements, but also of the defilements of all beings without differentiation, that you're not only learning the dharmas you need for individual realization, but you need all dharmas to benefit oneself and sentient beings, and you vow to attain the omniscience. The Arahat has also omniscience, but not omniscience in all aspects. Sarva Akara, Sarva Gyata. Any one of you has learned Sanskrit, I may use, because this treatise is that we are going to learn, and a meditation based on this treatise, which is basically Zen meditation. Any one of you has learned Zen meditation a little bit, so it will be very useful, because this is one of the texts we're going to touch and analyze, not in detail, but some most important principles of this text. Is only available in Chinese. As far as I know, it has never been translated into Tibetan. And almost all the most prominent Zen masters, and also masters of other traditions, especially like Huayan, practically all masters of the 6 Chinese traditions, they have commented on this text. So it is a very important text for the Chinese tradition. And the author of this text that we are going to deal with is no one other than the Ashwagosha. But this authorship of Ashwagosha is, of course, very doubtful. You will see by yourself. Ashwagosha was, if you may know, one of the greatest Sanskrit poets, so to say, the teacher of Kalidasa even, not directly or indirectly. Kalidasa has most great admiration for Ashwagosha. And Ashwagosha was, what we know from him, from his works, the most famous is Buddha Charita and Saudananda. They all actually don't express any ideas of particular to Mahayana. He was no doubt the Sarvastivada great teacher, one of the great teachers of Sarvastivada, which is a tradition through which, you may know, Buddhism has been transformed, especially from Kashmir to Central Asia and to China. So, as you may know, we have 2 Buddhist traditions, the Pali tradition and the Sanskrit tradition. And the Sanskrit tradition is the contribution of the Sarvastivada, as you may know. Buddha originally did not discourage the scholars to translate his talks into Sanskrit, the language of the Buddha, but it happened because as Buddhism spread after Ashoka, the Sanskrit became the common language of all India and of all the cultures to which the Indian culture has been spread. So, Ashwagosha is said to be the author of this treatise we're going to analyze. Most of the scholars do not believe it, but it doesn't matter if the scholars believe it or not believe it. It is a great work, very inspiring work, which explains the practice of Buddhism on the base of the faith. I have been trained in the Theravada Buddhism. When you train in the Theravada Buddhism, you learn about the objects of the mind, to analyze the objects of the mind, to analyze the mind. And this is considered usually to be also the ultimate reality, which through experiencing this ultimate reality in the process of samsaric consciousness, which is the impermanent consciousness. In Chinese, the samsara means arising and passing away. This is a name for impermanence, and this is a name for our existence also. We are, all that we are is arising and passing away, arising and cessation. Now, in this tradition based on faith, this you are being led from the very beginning that this arising and passing away, this samsara, is just a completely illusionary appearance. The real is our Buddha nature. And in order, because we normally do not see our Buddha nature, we have to believe in it. That's why this text we are going to analyze is called Mahayana BPada, the arising of the faith in Mahayana. But the Mahayana is here not something as opposed to something. Mahayana is our own mind. This is what we're going to learn. There is no any yana except our own mind. And our own mind is Mahayana because it has precisely this Buddha nature. And according to this treatise, we are also, we and our world is based, is so to say originated from our Buddha nature, but we do not see it. And that is our ignorance. So in order to see it, because we do not see it and it is very difficult to see it, we need faith. So when you study the especially Tibetan tradition, also Chinese tradition, so most important you start with faith. Faith is everything, because we do not see the Buddha nature. So this text is explaining how to see the Buddha nature on the base of the wisdom. We can only see the Buddha nature by means of the wisdom. And that is vipassana. The meaning of vipassana is just wisdom. And wisdom means awareness. So in this tradition, and in a way we can say in Tibetan tradition, in Chinese tradition, we see Buddhism through the eye of the wisdom of the faith. We develop the wisdom of the faith. This wisdom of the faith is called bodhicitta. And bodhi is the true nature of our mind. We will learn all this. We do not see it. But according to this tradition, the true nature of our mind, the mind really is body, body is a mind. And because we don't understand the mind, we divide it into all kinds of different processes of cognition to understand ultimately that our mind is a body, body is our mind. through studying how the mind works, we can understand Buddhism. So Buddhism is the science of body, and the body is, in this tradition, the nature of the mind. Our eyes are body, our ears are body, our nose is body. Our sixth consciousness is our body. Our self-consciousness is body. All kinds of consciousnesses in this, in the tradition of mind only, we have 8 consciousnesses. This is only skillful means for understanding consciousness. All our body. But we do not see it. So we rely on faith to see it. And the faith does not come from differentiation according to this treatise. Precisely, the faith comes from the face of that which we cannot grasp. And that which we cannot grasp is called the non-differentiating consciousness. Of course, in order to live, we need to differentiate. If we don't differentiate, we cannot live. But the body precisely is that our differentiating consciousness and our non-differentiating consciousness, they merge together. And how is what the text actually explains. So, in the Buddhist tradition, we can say we have 3 great concepts of dependent origination. All what the Buddha has realized and taught finally is dependent origination. We study Buddhism, we study dependent origination. This is very important to understand. That's what makes Buddhism Buddhism, the dependent origination. Dependent origination is not something we can understand through theory. We have to have an awareness of it. Then we know Buddhism. So some people study Buddhism, but the real Buddhism comes through the direct experience of the dependent origination. Now, in traditional Buddhism, as we learn in Pali and so on, the root of our understanding of dependent origination is the karma. The dependent origination happens on the base of the karma. That is the basic concept. Karma means accumulation of the samskaras. Samskara, ayuhana. We accumulate the samskaras, therefore we are experiencing all kinds of existence. This is a basic concept common to all Buddhist views. Now, in Buddhist philosophy, you have the school of Madhyamika, which is very important for understanding the Bodhisattva path. And you have the school of Yogacara, or Chittamatrata, mind only, which is also extremely important for understanding the dependent origination. As far as dependent origination is concerned, the Madhyamika, Nagarjuna, Aryadeva and so on, Shantideva, they are satisfied with this explanation. You will find in Mula Madhyamika Karikas in the chapter on the dependent origination. Nagarjuna just repeats what this same concepts as you will find in Theravada, dependent origination based on karma. But of course, emphasis is on emptiness. But even in the Visuddhimagga you will find explanation of dependent origination as emptiness, but not emptiness as the only reality. Now, with Yogacara, and the Yogacaryans believe that they are the third turning of the wheel of Dharma. This is very important to understand. According to Yogacara tradition, we have three turnings of the wheel of Dharma. First, the Four Noble Truths in Sarana. Second, the Pragya Paramitas in Rajagaha. We are just coming from there. And the third in heaven, in heavenly mansions, but also in Vaishali. And that is the Chittamatrata. The Buddha explains that actually there is only one reality which is there, but not as we understand it. And it is the reality of the mind. The reality of the mind is there, but not as we understand it. So, this is to prevent the misunderstanding, which is not so obvious as we may think, that the middle way, as explained in the Pragya Paramita Sutras, is nihilistic. So the reality is neither this nor that. The reality is ungraspable because the nature of the mind is ungraspable, and the nature of our experience is also ungraspable. This is what we're going to learn here, and this is the base for meditation. In order to understand the ungraspable nature of our mind and of our experience, we have to see one moment. This is the philosophy of this treatise, is philosophy of one moment. In one moment, there is appearance, there is cessation, there is common characteristic, there is special characteristic. In one moment, there is sameness and there is difference. Whatever, these are called in the Hawaiian school, very important in Chinese Buddhism. These are the 6 characteristics which appear in the one moment. And these 6 characteristics, they are wonders.
They are?
Wonder, miaofa. Incredible wonder. We don't see this incredible wonder because we don't see one moment. They are, in a Hawaiian school, they are the 10 mysteries. We don't talk too many divisions. So we can only understand the Buddha nature when we understand one moment.
Can you please repeat the six wonders that you mentioned? Can you please repeat them?
Not 6 wonders, 6 characteristics,
Six characteristics
of one moment. It is sameness, but it is also difference at the same time. It has the generalization but particularization at the same time. And it arises and passes away at the same time. So to say, there is no gap in the one moment. Because the continuity is our karmic consciousness. This we will all learn. So there are two ways of interpreting dependent origination in the Yogacara. One is based on the alaya consciousness, that is the impermanent consciousness. Buddha says he has not explained this impermanent consciousness from which our illusion of duality comes, because we can mistake it for the self. So he did not explain it, says the Sandhya Sutra. Then we have another interpretation which is connected with all that we experience is based on the Buddha nature, on Tathagata Dharma. So these are the two aspects of the Citta Matrata. They are often connected together, especially in the Zen tradition. Lankavatara Sutra. It is said that Bodhidharma, when he came to China, he taught Lankavatara Sutra, which connects these two traditions. Both are based on the teachings of the Maitreya, the future Buddha. So you have dependent origination based on alaya and dependent origination based on Buddha nature. These are the three most important interpretations of the dependent origination, but they are not conflicting interpretations. In our treatise, they are put together. Only our understanding becomes complete when we arise, when we come back to the arising. We will talk about it, the arising of this karmic consciousness. This is a state of Buddha. In Buddha, the karmic consciousness does not arise. In us, it arises, therefore, our understanding of us and of the world is based on our continuity of consciousness. But this continuity of consciousness is precisely to be realized to be an illusion. This is the method of meditation that we're going to learn.
What's the third one you said?
Pardon?
One was dependent origination on alaya.
Alaya
One was
consciousness.
Yeah.
What means alaya? We are now in Himalaya,
Some consciousness.
where the abode, alaya means abode. We are in Himalaya, that is the abode of the snow. Now when you look at Kanchenjunga, you will see the Himalaya abode of the snow. The snow never disappears in Kanchenjunga. So we are bound to samsaric existence, to the existence of impermanence, because our mind has an abode. This abode of the mind is, of course, in traditional Buddhism, is our tanha, our greed, our thirst. Thirst gives the mind abode. Please study on ourselves. We all try to understand Buddhism, so we should understand by investigating ourselves. The Trishna, thirst, is not in itself bad. It is the Trishna for the sake of the ego, the illusionary self, which is the source of all the troubles. So this is also, I being a student of Abhidharma, teaching Abhidharma for a long time, this is the difference between the northern tradition and the southern tradition. This lobha or raga is always bad. But in northern tradition it is not always bad. The raga can be good, can be bad. Similarly, the resistance, pratigha, can be good or can be bad. Depends how we use it. Depends how we use it. Now, bodhicitta is also kind of a raga. If we don't have a raga, we will never develop a bodhicitta. But not based on the idea of oneself, but based on the idea of all beings. And this is precisely what we learn in this text.
But basically, when you say the northern tradition, you're referring to the
Sanskrit tradition, yes. Sanskrit tradition. Sanskrit tradition has also the how to become an arahant. Sarvastivana, how to become pratyeka Buddha, how to become a bodhisattva. Same like the southern tradition also has. Unless we know these three paths, we don't know really Buddhism. So no matter whether we study Theravada, we study Mahayana, we have to know how to become an Arahant. Buddha is also an Arahant. How to become Pratyeka Buddha. And how to become a Bodhisattva Buddha, which is the, so to say, Buddha who has experienced the fullness of realization, which is called Dharmakaya. We will learn about it, but we will eventually first learn some theories, then we will learn meditation. That is most important. This, what I am talking about, will be empty theory if we have not actually have some intuition into it, to see that our true self cannot be separated from the state of the Buddha. This is a meditation which we are going to learn. According to this tradition, if our self is separated from the Buddha, then we can never become a Buddha. It is impossible. what is separated cannot come together. That is the paradox on which this whole tradition of meditation is based. Whatever is one can never be separated, whatever is different can never come together. So our experience should break the boundaries of the mind. That what binds us is the mind, that what liberates us is the mind also. And the experience of Zen is nothing but the experience of breaking the boundaries of the mind. And we are all products of the boundaries of the mind. But these boundaries of the mind are illusionary, and that is Zen. That is Chan. Chan literally means dhyana. But it is not the traditional dhyana, it is dhyana of wisdom. This dhyana of wisdom can be connected with the traditional dhyana. It is not in contradiction, and the traditional dhyana can be very useful. But it is not the realization dhyana. The realization dhyana is seeing the Dharma body breaking the boundaries of the mind. When we break the boundaries of the mind, then our continuity seems to be an illusion. When our continuity seems to be an illusion, our concept seems to be an illusion. But yet we still have to work with concepts, we have to work with continuity. So this is a paradox. And this tradition of meditation is precisely using the paradoxes to understand what we are. We are a paradox. We are Buddhas and we are ignorance at the same time. And in this tradition, the Buddha and ignorance, they influence each other. And this is to be understood. The ignorance perfumes the Buddha, and Buddha perfumes ignorance. And all this happens in the Tathagata Garbha, in the matrix of the Tathagata, which is suchness, but covered by the thick clouds of ignorance. So we are nothing but suchness covered by the deep clouds of ignorance. And this is meditation. How wonderful to be suchness. When you see ignorance, you see suchness. When you see suchness, you see ignorance. This is a meditation. this is a process of abandoning our limitations. See suchness in ignorance, see ignorance in suchness. Overcoming the contradictions by letting go. That is Zen. Overcoming the contradictions by letting go. But you can only let go in samadhi, so we will learn here the samadhi of letting go. This is the samadhi of Zen. So are you interested to learn the samadhi of letting go, samadhi of Zen? So some of these theories will be very useful. This book or this treatise probably most likely was written by a Chinese monk. Nobody knows his name. But a very, very highly realized Chinese monk who had incredible intuition how we actually work. And so some, like Tai Chi, one of the most important personalities of modern Chinese Buddhism, Tai Chi believed that indeed the Ashwagosha is the author of this treatise because his intuition was beyond concepts. But the intuition beyond concept needs a concept. In other words, unless you have a finger pointing at the moon, you will never understand the moon of your heart. And this treatise is step by step showing you how to point out at the moon of your heart with the help of many, many theories, many, many divisions. This moon of your heart is, so the Zen teachers teach, is like the reflection of the moon in many, many different ponds of water. Our heart is compared to the pond of water, silent water, reflecting the moon. And this is the Zen meditation. This is what this treatise tries to explain. In order to understand it, then you have the comparison of the mind with a mirror, you have the comparison of mind with empty space. But as we shall see, the mind is not a mirror, mind is not an empty space. These are only similes which make us understand that our mind is a living thing. Mirror does not live, the space does not live, but our mind is living. And the life of our mind is the ability to reflect. this reflection is the very nature of the mind, the very nature of the body, which is not different from the mind itself. Whether we are aware of it or not aware of it, it is always there. So, all, according to this treatise, all that the Buddha has learned is to guide you to this understanding how the mind works as reflecting the reality without distorting it by karmic consciousness. And this happens only when we understand one moment. Not two, not three, not four, not five, one moment. When in this one moment the mind does not move, so you can reflect. When the mind starts to move, you are already transforming the enlightened nature of the mind by your karmic consciousness. This is a meditation. That is why we want a silent retreat. Why don't we see the silent nature of the mind? Because we identify with this talkative mind. The Buddha, another name for Buddha, is called Muni. The Muni means a silent. Another name for Buddha is also Kavi, the poet. When the mind is not moving, it is a wonder and it is a poetry. It is this wonder I have talked about. And this wonder is a true mind. That mind which, in our treatise, that mind which moves, is the illusionary mind. So understanding the illusionary mind, we come back to the true mind. So understanding ignorance means understanding wisdom. Understanding wisdom means understanding ignorance. Non-dualistic approach to meditation. So we have given some hors d'oeuvre, how do you say hors d'oeuvre in appetizer. We have hors d'oeuvre appetizer, and so that we understand a little bit what we are going to learn, what we are going to do. So slowly, we will get to the main meal, which will hopefully make us satisfied. And when we have all the good meal, then you have the postre, the dessert, or Nachgeschmack after the meal, and this is precisely what we should get from reading this treatise and meditating on the content of this treatise. When we live here, we have Buddha. And the mind of the Buddha is not different from the mind of us, ignorant beings. Mind, ignorant beings, which we are, and the Buddha become one. This is the teaching of this treatise we're going to talk about. And that is the postre, that is the dessert, sweet taste, which should make the quality of our existence better. We accept ignorance, we accept wisdom, we accept everything by not identifying. So this is the state of the Zen, Samadhi. In order to accept everything, you have to go into the mind. Going into the mind is Samadhi. That is why the practice of the shamatha is so important, because in shamatha you go into the mind. The five senses have no influence. They will be there, but they don't influence the contemplation of the mind of your meditation object, what the meditation object may be. So this is experience of mano maya kaya, the mind created body. In Zen meditation, indeed, in Mahayana meditation, this deep experience of the mentally created body is very, very important. It is the essence. When you have this experience of mind-created body, then these five senses will be there. You do not want to cut the five senses. But you don't identify with them, but you don't also reject them. Neither identifying nor rejecting. Not hold, not reject. Not hold, not reject. One moment of not holding, not rejecting, one moment of Zen. And for Zen, the mind has to be drawn home, inside. So that we see that the objects actually arise not outside, but arise in mind. Normally we don't see that the object arise in mind. We have to be in samadhi to know that the objects arise in mind. Only when we see that the object arises in mind, we can practice neither holding nor rejecting. But if the objects arise outside of mind, automatically there will be holding or rejecting. according to this tradition, according to Lankavatara Sutra also, this treatise is very closely connected with Lankavatara Sutra. We believe the objects to be outside because we hold to the mind. And when we don't hold to the mind, it will reveal reality as it is. Because we hold to the mind, the reality as it reveals is a distorted reality. Because we hold to the mind, the reality is a distorted reality. So, according to this, we then identify with the moving mind. We don't see the real nature of the silent mind. The silent mind reveals itself through the moving mind. The moving mind reveals itself through the silent mind. Silent mind and the moving mind, one moment. Silent mind will turn to moving mind in one moment. Moving mind will turn to silent mind in one moment. When in one moment the sign doesn't move, then we can investigate our real nature. So, enough for the appetizer. So we can have a break. After the break, we can have a little discussion if there are any questions, and then we will explain the meditation method. And the meditation methods that I explain here will be the most common meditation and most awarding meditation, meditation on the breath. But I will explain meditation on the breath based on the Yogacara Bhumi Shastra, Sharamaka Bhumi, which means meditation on the breath in the whole body. This is very helpful because by understanding the breath in the whole body, we go to the subtle mind. Subtle mind experiences the subtle body. The gross mind cannot experience a subtle body. So this is why this experience of deep meditation is so important. In deep meditation, you sublimate the mind and body at the same time.
Supplement.
Sublimate means make finer, make sublime, more fine, more refined. When they are refined, then you can learn to understand them as being one whole. This is easier when you meditate on the breath in the whole body than on just one spot. Let us learn step by step. More theories, more meditation, more explanation in meditation. And we have 10 days to do so. So by the time we finish here, I hope you will get some intuition how to, what this text explains also, how to go from impermanence, suffering of impermanence, non-selflessness of impermanence, to transcending the impermanence, experiencing this is a tradition, the permanent, the blissful and the real self, which is